Okay. We're good.
Okay, good. Okay. So I'm the discussion director for this week, and I guess we can just start with my first question. And it was, how are Zora and Lucas alike or different? And then give specific examples.
Okay.
I think one thing that they're both alike is they're both have ADHD and are on medication. So that is like that's one of the similarities. One of them.
Yeah. I say how they're like was their a lot of attention is on them and not for good reason. Like they're the ones that get called out in class or talked about a lot. The kids are starting to them or stuff like that.
They're basically labeled as like the trouble child, even they aren't necessarily causing like major disruption or anything like that. It's just they act differently from everyone else, or out differently than from the class or what the teacher expects.
Yeah. Is there anything else we want to say, or I can move on to?
I was gonna say did you say only similarities? Because I had something for a difference.
No, I said a like or a different.
Okay. Oh. So something that's different. I remember I think when it was Zora and the ADHD meds, her mom was, I'm pretty sure against it or was trying everything to avoid it. But then I remember Lucas, I think his parents, I forget, were more interested in ready to try that right away. So I just found that interesting.
Yeah. I remember reading about that last night, which I thought was interesting. And she took it. I feel like his parents took it much better than a lot of parents do. Sometimes when you bring that up, it's a topic that parents don't want to hear about. But I was surprised that his parents were so willing to have that as an option.
Right.
Okay, so my second question was, have you had an experience with students like Zora? Yes, if so, what were they? Just the trouble child, I guess, or student.
I think I have a Zora right now in my room. She is all the teachers know about her. When she goes down the hallway, they all know that, oh, here she comes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So she's known for lashing out and just giving attitude crazy. And she has reverted back to that. She was doing so good at the beginning of the year, but now she's being disrespectful again. So yeah, we gotta kind of do that. But I came into it not knowing who she was previously. I'm just seeing who she is now. So I think that kind of benefits me because other teachers know her from her past, just like they did with Zora. So they just keep thinking about how she was last year and not who she's becoming and her changing. So I think that's kind of
Yeah.
I'm in the exact same situation. So I get it.
Honestly, same. There were two kids that came to mind as our most troublemakers. I don't even think so, but just the ones who are giving us different behaviors that are disruptive. So
a lot of big personalities, I feel like.
What's that?
Big personalities, just be the class clown or people to laugh at them. I got a lot of those. I feel very vocal group.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that this book is making me so much more empathetic for those kids, not really seeing them as troublemakers, understanding that the system is kind of not really built for them and that sort of thing. So that's been really beneficial, honestly.
Mm-hmm. That was something I was thinking about when reading about how Zora's parents encourage her to be different and not conform to what everybody does. But then right when she goes to school, school, it's she has to follow this way or else, basically. Like, there's really no other option. It's sad to me that that's become the normal, even though, like, there's nothing wrong with it. That's just how she is.
Yeah.
I
There's the
agree.
quote that perfectly goes along with that. It's on page 66, and it says, unlike Zora's parents who openly encouraged standing out, Lucas's parents were on board with the school's efforts to train him to fit in. So I thought that went along with what you just said, and then your previous question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to me.
I think it, like, that kind of brings back to the whole, the line that's, like, it's a really fine line between Zora's family, like, wanting to encourage, like, your differences and all that stuff, but also, like, it's time to, like, listen. It's time to, like, we cannot distract our, like, students. So it's, like, trying to balance on that line, I feel like it's just really hard, especially in the book. And you kind of see it, like, you have parents that are, like, put them in line, and then you have ones that are, like, no, like, let them be who it is. But it's, like, you still need to have a good classroom management, and, like, you still want students to learn, not be, like, distracted, but also you don't want to, like, I've talked about, like, the high standard schools. Like, you're almost, like, they need to follow, like, these rules, and it's, like, I don't know, it's just a really, I think, difficult thing to master.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That kind of goes along to my third question. It says, how can we embrace students like Zora and Lucas while also facilitating their traditional school and environment in our future classrooms? That's kind of a long question, but basically I'm just saying, like, how do we embrace the behaviors and personalities while also, you know, having the traditional classroom where everybody sits still and you're quiet? There's not an answer, obviously, but I just thought that was a good thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Go along with these chapters.
I feel like I've been asking myself this question all week. Like, truthfully, because we've had some behaviors where I'm like, oh, I just hate to, like, take this out of you because this is who you are. Like, you're just kind of like a fidgety, like, can't sit still, like, have lots of things to blurt out and say. And, like, I hate having to shush them. And, like, you know, it's just, like, I know that that's who they are and that's what makes them great. But at the same time, we have 20 kids and I want to hear from all of them and not be disrupted when I'm trying to teach. So, yeah, that is so hard. I, like, have no idea.
Yeah. I think there's obviously better ways to go about to, like, kind of, like, tell a quiet, or tell us, like, hey, like, we need to listen to others talk, or, like there's definitely kinder ways to handle that. And I feel like just the balance between, like the teachers up in the front and, like, doing a quick lesson or whatever, and just being, like, right before, like, hey, like, all right, I'm just going to talk for, like, 20 minutes here. I need you all to, like, do your best to listen to me, raise your hand, don't blur, and then give, like, 20 minutes of, like, group or work time or, like, stuff that, like, like, talk with their peers. And, like, I think that might be, obviously it's not going to be perfect, but, like, just having that balance, back and forth between paying attention and, like, almost like you can do your own thing as long as you get it done.
Yeah. So I think what would help is what we were kind of learning about last week was with the circle. I cannot remember the name, but it was something circle. I can't remember it. But when they all sit in a circle and kind of talk, because then I think that gives each student a time to talk, and the student will be able to, like, say what they're thinking, and then just also, like, make sure that they feel independent and they feel in control of themselves, because once a student feels out of control, they act out of control. And that's what I'm learning from a high-risk classroom is, like, once, like, if they have a substitute teacher that's in there and they really don't know or aren't confident, the children are going to go crazy because they don't feel secure. So that's another big thing. And just I love that my teacher, because they're high risk, like, a lot of them have, like, hoarding issues, so they try, like, hoard food in their desk, and that's just from trauma. So she always, like, when there's extra breakfast, she always keeps it in the classroom, and the children are allowed to eat throughout the day. They don't, like, gorge themselves, but it's, like, allowing them that safety to know that there's something there for them in their desk, and that just helps them inside.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really good because she's like, what's the point of taking food away from a child if that's going to be like distract them all day? And I was like, that's so true. So like the kids can eat like an apple throughout the day, and that's completely fine in the classroom, which is, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
And she has flexible seating too, so they can sit wherever they want most of the time. So I just allowing them to be independent and think for themselves. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I
Alex,
really like it.
what grade are you in?
What?
Sorry.
I'm in a split first and second grade classroom.
Okay. All right. Dang. That's pretty cool.
So yeah, all my second graders are high risk, and they're low because of home life basically, and a lot of my first graders are high, so they're
Okay.
almost outdoing the second graders.
Got it. Okay.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's interesting.
Yeah.
What school are you at? No, I'm
I'm
curious.
at Montague.
Montague? Like,
Yeah.
not, oh my gosh. I went to Whitehall, which is like the rival school.
Okay, yeah,
That's
yeah.
so
So I'm
funny.
at Montague. Yeah.
I did not know they did that.
Well, this is the first year that they're doing it just because the numbers are so low.
Yeah.
So they combined because my mentor teacher was saying how people are having their kids later in life. So there's like kind of a gap right now.
Okay.
So there's a couple. I think, and this might be the only split class in the school. So
Okay. Who's your mentor teacher?
Tina Whiting.
Okay. Not sure who that is.
Yeah, she taught kindergarten for a little while, and then she's been in first grade for quite a while.
Okay. Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool because the book was just talking about a split classroom.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's, and I was like, oh my goodness, connections.
yeah. Okay. This is kind of the same, but a little bit different. For number 4, I said it is possible to bridge the gap between standing out and fitting in while also staying true to who you are. If so, how? Because I feel like they used that word a lot, standing out, in a bad way, or not a bad way, but talking about Zora, how she already stood out in a mostly white school, and she just moved around a lot. So I'm just curious what our thoughts are, like how to keep kids true to themselves, but also, it's kind of the same, but a little bit different.
My mind is kind of going to like building relationships and like making sure that there's a good teacher-student relationship, but also like the student has great friends that they're surrounded by who accept them for who they are, and just like building that community and like social emotional learning, like teaching what kindness and like friendship should be, and like establishing that culture in the classroom probably would help.
Yeah, I agree.
I also, sorry, I just had one last thought. I also think like what in seminar tonight our people said was like something about one of the videos was like knowing that it won't be the same to be fair, like everyone won't be equal.
Yeah.
Like fair is whatever it was, like that, like knowing that people will have different needs, but that makes it fair, and that without that it's not fair.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting too. We always hear, I feel like, oh, it needs to be fair and equal for everybody, but that means something different to everybody or every student. So I think how to navigate that as well, but also to try to keep it fair. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, how do we keep it equal, but not everybody needs the same thing, so it's not going to be equal or fair. I don't know. I'm just confusing myself, but
I think that's like the never-ending question because right now teachers if you don't have enough time, like there is not enough time in the day to get to every student, and that's something like Tina always talks about. She's like, there's not enough time. There's never enough time, and so like to make sure each student gets what they need, like I feel like classrooms would need to be smaller. And so then you can work individually with them and like find out what they need and like work with them on things. Because I mean, when you have a classroom full of 23 kids, like that's hard to make sure that each kid is getting what they need. So either more teachers in the classroom or like smaller classrooms. That's what I personally think.
Yeah. I'm in a classroom right now, and we only have 17 kids. And I just think about my mom's a teacher too, and she told me one time that she had a class that was 31 students, I believe.
Gosh.
And I was just thinking, like, it's already a lot to have to do 17 students, and like my class is near perfect. So I'm just thinking, what if you have 30 one students and a lot of big behaviors, and just that's
So
a lot to take on.
So tough, yeah.
My mentor teacher, he had 33 students his first year.
Oh my goodness.
What?
Yeah. I was like, oh, no thanks.
I didn't even think it went up that much.
No, it was crazy. Like, we have 20 right now. I think that's a really good number.
I agree.
Yeah.
We have 20 also.
Yeah, we have 23.
Okay. So my last question is, reflect on the chapter titled On Being Pigeonholed. What does this term mean to you, and have you seen it happening in real life? So for me, that on being pigeonholed, I was kind of confused, but I think it just means making assumptions about the students without, like, how they put the student in a box and they're just kind of stuck there. I remember we talked about this last week, I think, but I just thought it was interesting the way, like, this was worded on being pigeonholed. Like, I don't think there was an explanation. So I was just curious what it maybe meant to everybody. I feel like it just means you're stuck and you just make assumptions about the kids, and then they have to, like, work really hard to get rid of that pigeonhole box, maybe.
Yeah.
Like,
I think you're pretty much spot on, like being too rigid or exclusive kind of thing.
yeah. I've definitely... Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you can go.
I was just going to say, I've definitely seen this. I talked about this last week too, but on, like, one of my first days of being in my placement, just everybody was talking about, oh, so-and-so is doing this from last year, or they like already had all these assumptions about kids, and it was like the second day of school, and I'm just like, you didn't even give them a chance to, maybe they've changed a lot over the summer, or I don't know.
Or they just need a fresh start with the teacher who will give them a chance.
Yeah.
That actually leads me into my quote. Do you want me to go into my stuff?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so the quote is on page 71. It's the first paragraph, but I'll read it was the first two sentences, and then it's near the bottom. But it says, through the lens of child development and in the context of school, children are pigeonholed depending on their abilities and dispositions. They are put into boxes: gifted, ADHD, smart, slow, ahead, behind, special ed, Asperger's. And then down the page, it says, Miss Norber and Miss Beverly correctly explained to the families that as children remain under the influence of school for many years, they start to represent the world they see with their eyes versus that which they imagine in their mind. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that and see what you guys thought about that, and especially like the last part, like how like the world is starting to develop into what they see with their eyes and not what they have in their mind.
I was gonna, like, what I was thinking of, I'm taking like a disability class right now, and that just kind of like brought me back to that, because we're learning like basically the inclusion of like students with a disability, whether it's like minor like ADHD, or it can be like traumatic brain injury, like literally anything, or autism. And I think that just kind of, I think slowly we're starting to accept and adapt and learn to work with these students compared to even what it was like 10 years ago or something. Like, this slow, obviously not perfect, and it probably will never be perfect, but it's just slowly starting to progress, and the recognition of this like issue is growing, and like movements are happening for it and stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Oh, did you have a thought?
No, I was just saying, yeah, I was agreeing.
Oh, okay. Well, when you bring up your social education course, that's what I wrote for why I chose this one. I said that because it goes along with what I learned, and how children are labeled and put into boxes, and they are expected to be measured by the same tests. So yeah, and then at the end I was talking about like children starting to see the world with their eyes and not with their mind. So I just thought that was kind of empowering, but like scary at the same time, because what world are they seeing with their eyes? You know what I'm saying? Like, what world is their school showing them? Because sometimes, and it says in the later paragraph, in the next paragraph, that but the world I see with my eyes is not always a beautiful one. So yeah, I just think that's like a lot to just like soak in.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
for sure. That part was a bit confusing to me because you did help, or you explained it really well, but when I was reading it, I couldn't understand it. But it makes me think about how innocent kids come into school,
Mm-hmm.
and then you leave school, like even high school or stuff like that. It's like flipped around. I feel like I might be wrong, but a lot of kids leave saying like, "Oh, I don't like school anymore," and I'm like,
Yep.
"Well, what happened along the way? Just like the atmosphere of school in general. Why is it doing this to kids? Like, is it just in America or in the US? You know, it's interesting because I feel like a lot, even when I've seen the kids, and I've only been in placement for about a month now, because we started like, see how excited they were when we first got there, and then now they do one little thing and the teacher immediately shoots them down. I'm just like, that's gonna have a lasting effect forever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So true.
it's
Yep.
crazy. Okay, you guys want to share? Do you want to share the rest of yours, Alex?
Yeah, I'll go.
And
I
then
just got
look
two
through
more.
Okay.
So my next one is on page 49, but it's like the paragraph. It's the one talking about Lucas, and I'll read the first part of it and then kind of just explain it so that we don't have to keep going with our time. But it's the fourth paragraph. It says, he begins to look around the room. This often happens when he is called to the rug for whole group lessons, where his attention quickly wanes. His eyes move to the ceiling, to the back wall, the door. He's taking in the calendar, the Lego bricks and stuffed puppets, and it's just talking about like how he gets up and like goes over the students and like goes to the bookshelf and it starts reading. And I just kind of wanted to see like what your guys' thoughts were on that and like how you would handle it, because to me in that situation, if I'm just sitting down reading a story and I know that there's a student who cannot handle just sitting there, but he wants to go and read something else, I don't think that should be punished, because he's still getting that same thing in. Like unless it's like an SEL lesson where it's something like social emotional learning. But if it's just I'm just reading a story and you can't focus on that, then yeah, I feel like you should have that ability to go and read a story that you're interested in while the other kids want to read the one that I'm reading. But I just think that there's a better way to handle that, and clearly he doesn't do good with waiting for things, because it says like he was like started like rubbing at a spot because she was like a couple minutes late. So it's, I don't know, like just knowing your students that if you tell them to go sit on the rug, like you need to be like there, especially with those kinds of students, even though that's not always going to happen. No, but just understanding that, and yeah, and because they can't sit long for a great amount of period of time, so it's just yeah. I don't know. I just wanted to see your guys' thoughts on what you guys would do if that was your child.
I think that's a reasonable, I don't know, I would try it if that's what's happening, and if maybe making sure that he or she is focused on, their own reading, and if that's beneficial to them, then I don't think I have a problem with it, just because then, yeah, you're right, like at least they're getting some literacy content, even if it's not the way that you intended for the whole class, but if it works better for them, I think that's a fair accommodation.
I think it too depends on like the context of the situation, like what grade you're in. I feel like has a big factor.
Yeah.
And also, if it's like a short, quick picture book, like I feel like, I don't know, I think it just depends on the situation. I don't think it should be like an all the time thing, because then like at the end of the day, like, oh, like if it's every once in a while, like you can read your book if that helps you. But I think a lot of students might take advantage of that.
Yeah.
So being situation, who the student is, and like just knowing, being like, hey, I know that you're doing, like, you're just like, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I like how my mentor teacher runs her classroom, because the students, if like what I tell them, like when we do calendar, I'm like, if you can focus more at your desk, you can go to your desk. And like the students who know that they need that, they will go. And like there isn't a student that misuses that, and if there is, then we call them back. So it's kind of like that thing where they are in charge of themselves. So we just lost 2 people.
Oh no.
What's happening? I only see McKenna. I'm so confused.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, they're back.
What?
I think my FaceTime gave out.
I only see McKenna,
But
which is so
maybe
weird.
her phone is still recording. What we're saying.
Yeah, I mean it's still going, but I only see McKenna
Hopefully.
and I.
Yeah.
But I think we're okay. I still hear you
But
all.
do we just keep going?
I
Do
think
you
so.
wait?
Yeah.
Did yours come back automatically?
Mine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me try
Okay.
something.
But my last FaceTime I had with my 1 o'clock like small group, my phone I had to leave a couple times and join. So is it my turn or is it Alex? Do you still have one more quote?
We still have one more quote, but I don't know if we wanted to wait for her to get back.
No, everyone's
Just
here.
because I know she's the one recording this whole thing.
I'm here.
Yeah.
She's here. Like her face isn't on the thing, but
Oh.
I mean, it's a technology issue. I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm
hopefully
here.
she can still see us.
Yeah.
I
and hear
can.
us.
I can see.
My last one
Oh, yeah.
was this on page 18. It was that paragraph again. It says, as entertaining as she can be, the trouble she gets in signals to her peers that she is the problem. She has a reputation for as public enemy number 1. So that kind of goes back with what you were saying about like, I think it was like your first question or your second question. I can't remember which one, but talking about like her past, like being brought up and stuff like that. So I just wanted to see what your guys' thoughts on that were, and how Zora is perceived because of what she did in the past, and how teachers still look at her like that.
Yeah, that part made me sad when like the students were policing her.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like the teacher patted them on the back for that, even though that's not their place.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they did say that you could do that in their class or something like that, but it made me sad because I don't know if they know her or not, but if they don't, they're already making assumptions about her just because she's acting out. So I don't know how we like switch the narrative, because obviously you don't want the whole class acting out, but she's not like doing it on purpose. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard. I don't. That's tough.
But yeah, that's all I had for mine.
Perfect.
Okay. No. So, all right, I'll move on to mine really quick. Lindsay, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you and I can see
Okay,
McKenna.
cool.
Can everyone else hear me?
I can.
Can anyone else?
Oh.
Sounds like not. What?
Wait, is she on here?
Is she speaking? Because I can't
Yeah.
hear her.
I can't hear her.
I can't hear her.
That's so weird.
I-
Maybe
So I was
we.
like, who are you talking to?
Maybe
Yeah.
let's end it and pop
Oh.
back in.
Okay, yeah, let's check.
Okay.
Oh,
Sweet.
Oh,
Weird.
I don't know if you tried to answer any of my questions, but I did not hear you. So I'm sorry for cutting you off.
That is so funny. I was here the whole time, but I don't know. I could hear you, but I couldn't see you too. I could only see McKenna and hear. It was weird, but we're all here, so let's keep going.
Okay.
that's funny.
Okay, are we good now?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, my volume is kind of wonky, so I can't hear too well.
Oh,
No,
we can hear you.
just okay. Cool. All right, so I'll kind of go through this quick. So the first connection I made was when in the beginning of the reading, it talked about these like high standard schools, and like kind of what they look like both physically, like the students and the teachers were predominantly white, and then the teachers had like full authority and like a high teacher status. So in like these classrooms, I feel like they do have their advantages, but they also have like numerous disadvantages. And so I think I related this to our like lesson this week because there's a lot of lack of empathy and understanding in these high standard schools. As you can tell too with like Zora, like, and so have you ever, so my two questions for that, have you ever felt labeled as like the troubled child or like different in the school? Or you know someone
personally?
Or if you know someone kind of like back when you were in elementary school, you were like, oh, that kid is not going to do the homework, or oh, that kid is so and so.
I think I was a trouble kid for some teachers, because I did have ADHD, and so when I was younger, I wasn't on medication until 5th grade. So I couldn't like focus. So then a lot of teachers struggled with that, and substitutes struggled with that. But hey, I'm here, so we made it through. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I did always feel different. Like I never wanted anyone to know that I had ADHD because I felt like I was stupid or like I couldn't do what the other kids were doing. So I just feel like there wasn't enough people that talked about having ADHD, and like because so many people do, and so I always felt out of place. And I think when I was younger, I kind of acted out because I felt out of place. So I think that helps me in teaching because I see that in the students. So yeah, I think I was kind of the trouble kid.
I definitely knew some. My brother was one too. He had ADD, so I know he struggled a lot, just with focusing and following the social norms of the schools. So
yeah. All right. So for the second connection, so obviously I mentioned this before, the big focus this week was about empathy and understanding and communicating with your students. So let's see. In the high standard school, Zora is considered a social outcast with the way she looks and acts. In order to get attention from her peers, she distracts her classmates and then gets in trouble. But it no longer faces her that she's getting in trouble. And although like the writer knows like why Zora is acting, the teacher does not have the connection with her to understand why Zora is acting out. And so I kind of like was thinking maybe the teacher lacks some empathy for her student and the situation she's in. So the question I made from that is, do you think if the teacher was to focus on understanding Zora better and having empathy for her situation, would that change her behavior?
I definitely.
Oh, you can go.
Okay. I was just gonna say I definitely think it would make a difference. I don't know if it would change her behavior, but I feel like once, at least in when I've had experiences talking to kids and like getting down on their level or just talking to them, they understand that I'm on their side and I'm not trying to harp on them. So I feel like it would definitely alter her behavior and make her understand like, hey, it's okay if you I'm like not good with my words right now. It's okay if you oh my gosh, like if you like just talking to them will help them understand that you're on their side basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially with those students who act out, usually they act out because they're wanting something. So you can just talk to them and again, like have them know that you're on their side. That can do a lot of help, and just making them feel heard is another thing. Like you gotta have structure, but you gotta get on students if they're acting out, but then you gotta go back to that student. You can't just get on them and like let it be. Like you gotta go back and talk to them because then they feel like they're being heard, and then they'll learn like, oh, if I have something to say, she'll come back to me. Like like that. So
yeah.
So I guess the next questions also kind of tie into what you said, Haley, about like if you were in a situation, what would you do, and kind of like, do you think if there was more sympathy, would things be different?
Yeah, I definitely think teachers are quick to just want to immediately correct the behavior, at least from what I've seen. If they would take the time to understand, like maybe they don't have the best home life, or maybe they just want you to talk to them, because so much of the day is structured where it's like everybody's a robot. Maybe if you just took 5 minutes out of the day to have a conversation with them about something, they would be more willing to cooperate. Is my thought.
For sure.
All right. So for the last connection I made, I kind of tied it back to our classrooms. I know we've talked about this, but in the chapter, Zora and Ryan kind of are very differently compared to their classmates, and because they don't fit like the social norms, they left out or lack of attention. And I wrote down for an example too when Zora was in her classroom and they were talking about like making the class contract. Like she kept saying like making sure we're like kind to others, or or like I don't remember exactly, but it was something in that lines, and it was like clearly a cry for help, like
Yeah.
hey, please like have this. And then the teacher like still ignored her because she didn't raise her hand, but like so yeah, I just wrote that as a side note because I thought that was super like a deep like connection or noticing. So so I guess I wanted to tie that back. I know I have students who are in these situations, so that was like the connection I made, and I know you guys do too. So I guess,
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm like, oh, I don't want to repeat the question, but basically I just said like, do you have a student in a similar situation, and then like explain, but we kind of did that. I guess is there any way that you've tried to reach to these students you guys have? Like yours in your classroom?
With the students who blur out, like there's a book today that we're reading about a dinosaur, like how do dinosaurs go to school, or something about that. And one of them said that the dinosaur leaped out of the door or something like that. And one of the kids like he yeeted himself out the door, and I was like, what? And I was like, if you have something to say, you need to raise your hand. So he raises his hand up, and he should have yeeted himself out the door. And he's one of the kids who just kind of like blurt out a lot. And I was like, the author could have said that he yeeted himself out the door. So it's like acknowledging what he said and like acknowledging that, yeah, he's right. He could have used that language. But I'm like, if you wrote a story, then you could write he yeeted himself out of the door.
Yeah.
Like little things like that, because sometimes what they're saying is accurate, and it's okay if they don't raise their hand. Just go back to them, because what they're saying is still important. And if they raise their hand, it's not really like, how often in college are you like,
literally, well,
no,
it's not even the real world. I remember in 4th grade I had one teacher in my whole K-12 career, and he was teaching us that we didn't have to raise our hand, and it was literally for 1 grade of my life. But it does make a big difference. It's like, that's so true in the real world. You don't just raise your hand.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, in most scenarios. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good example. Do you guys want me to do my illustration quick? We're at like 38 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to screen share. I think that's a thing. Oh, that just turned myself off. Share my screen. 3, 2, 1. Okay, can you guys see things?
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know you could do that.
Okay, so sorry, I have to find it. Okay. So here's my illustration. Basically, this is Lucas and Zora at the bottom, and I just kind of quoted some things that I thought followed with, I forget what they said, the 4 key features that were discussed, like delay, denial, interruption, social distraction, as like things that are like the social norms of school that are kind of hidden. So, and this is just them feeling confused and frustrated and like the gray cloud above them just to like represent how that can kind of weigh them down instead of like brightening up their day. It just is adding to like the negativity where school should really, we want it to be a place of happiness and learning and growth, but yet they're kind of just being like constantly told not to do things like, no, you can't do whatever you want, listen to the teacher, stop playing and listen to what you were asked, sit down and be quiet, and just things like that. So that was what I was trying to represent in this. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did it stop? Or is it still sharing?
It's
No,
like,
it's just blurry screen. There we go.
Okay, sorry. All right, so that's all I think. Did everyone get what they needed to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.